Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the actual cooking part is probably only about 30, 35.
We'll talk too, because we want people to know who you are. So, hey, everybody, and welcome to Chef AJ Live. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and this is where I introduce you to amazing people like you who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. I have not seen today's guest in many years. He is the owner of a wonderful restaurant in Los Angeles. Well, it's actually in Studio City, but we say Los Angeles, called SunCafe, that has both amazing cooked and raw dishes. His name is Chef Ron Russell. He also teaches cooking classes. I took one of his classes when I was there. He's a wonderful culinary instructor as well as chef. Please welcome him to the show. It's so good to see you. What's happening with the restaurants in LA?
Well, AJ, it's crazy. They keep shutting us down to inside dining. We can only do delivery and pickup, but we're still doing that 7 days a week. But it's it's a little challenging not having a restaurant to bring in diners. So that's been twice now we've had to do that. Once for 3 months, and this we've been a month closed. And they're saying probably maybe the end of January, but who knows?
I'm really sorry.
Yeah, it's tough, but we are still have a lot of our regulars are ordering to go, so that does help. But it's a slightly limited menu we're doing. We cut out a couple things, but not too many. All our favorites are still on there. Our lasagna, our mac and cheese, which is gluten-free, both of those. We've still got our nachos and 100 other dishes, but and our shakes, which is our kind of our calling card. I call that our gateway drug, because once you've had it, you can't stop with the shakes. So
yeah, the nachos were my favorite thing there. And how did you get the pieces of cabbage cut so perfectly to look like chips?
Well, we use mandolin, which is a little platform with a blade in the middle, and you just get the exact same cut every time using a mandolin. But for your people that are watching, if you use a mandolin, I require my chefs, who are professional chefs, to wear a Kevlar glove. Kevlar gloves makes it so you can't cut yourself, either with a knife or with a mandolin or whatever. It's $5. It's a great investment in the kitchen.
I love to hear you say that, because for the last, well, not this year, but before that, 10 years, I would work at Christmas at True North, and they were so macho there. They would never use a glove or even the guard. And, if you cut your thumb off once, you'd think you would.
You would think. I've seen some unfortunate accidents with mandolins, so I require them to wear.
Well, good. You're a good, not only a good chef, but a great chef, but a good boss, because safety first.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and if they bleed in the food, it's not vegan anymore, right?
That's one way to look at it, yeah.
Yeah. So guys, if you do live in LA and you can support SunCafe with takeout, please do so, because it's a wonderful restaurant. I saw you on I can't remember the name of the show of Jane Velez Mitchell on Amazon.
Oh, right.
You did
on Amazon. Yeah, I did a couple of recipes for that. I've done Jane Unchained. She has two things. She has an Amazon show, and then she also has her own social media show that she does daily. And I've been on her show many, many times, like 8 or 10 times at least.
Yeah. Where did you get your start, like plant-based and then owning a restaurant? Because I really don't know your story, which is why
I've been vegetarian very short time, only 43 years.
That's how long I've been, 43. 1977 too?
Yeah.
What are the chances? September 1st.
Ironically, and then I've been vegan 20 something. I did milk for a while, but the way I started, I was actually a chef earning my way through college. And one night I had an aha moment. I had 50 pieces of meat on the grill like any other night, and was watching the blood come out and just made the connection. And I've never eaten meat once since that night. And I gave up fish and all of it, all within that same year. So I gave up eggs as well. So I just did milk for a while. The term vegan hadn't even been invented yet by that point. And then I started learning about veganism in the 80s. So yeah, that's my start.
It's fantastic. How long have you been working in a restaurant and owning a restaurant and chefing at a restaurant?
Well, we opened SunCafe 11 years ago now. Excuse the airplane a little bit. But yes, so I've never had a restaurant in between there. Just I've had many different professions over the years. Always kind of entrepreneurial, started multiple businesses. And so I've had the restaurant now 11 years. I'm also on the creative side, by the way, big shout out. This is the 250th anniversary of this gentleman. His birth, this is Ludwig van Beethoven. I am a huge Beethoven fan. I was a music major in college and created a huge connection to Beethoven. And I'm actually producing, and I wrote a screenplay, and we're producing it next year. So the film is called The Deafening Silence. And it's about an obsessed pianist who's obsessed with Beethoven. So that'll be coming out in about a year, hopefully.
Oh, well, then we'll have you back on the show and you can talk about that. You know, in your bio, you say you've won 18 culinary awards. I didn't even know you can win a culinary award. Where did you win them and what are they?
Well, some of the ones we've won, the two most important to me is OpenTable has the top list. And we twice were named one of the 10 best restaurants in Los Angeles County out of 14,000, not in the vegan category, but overall, one year we were named number 6 and one year we were named number 8. And also we've 3 times won as the best vegan mac and cheese in LA, and other top lists we've won. We were just recently named on Veg Out's top 10 list, and so on.
Well, congratulations. That's very impressive.
We try, we've had meat eaters say that we are their favorite restaurant. It's not just for vegans, for sure.
That's fantastic. And what even impresses me more is it says you do something with Dr. Dean Ornish. Talk about that.
Yes, I work with Dr. Dean Ornish. If you don't know who that is, he's a groundbreaking cardiologist. And he started in the 80s treating people with diet to reverse heart disease. And of course, doctors really got on board quickly. No, they did not. They thought he was a complete quack. However, his evidence is overwhelming, and he's now considered one of the top cardiologists in the world because he is actually able to reverse, not just control heart disease like other doctors. I work with his patients. We feed them 4 times a week. They come in and they learn about plant-based and low-fat dining so that they can reverse their heart disease. I've had many people from my cooking classes as well that have reversed heart disease. And so we do that. And then I also train his patients how to cook low-fat, vegan, plant-based food. So I've been working with Dr. Ornish about 2 years now.
That is so exciting. Where?
Yeah, he has a clinic at UCLA Medical Center.
Wow, that to me is really impressive. But are you doing it virtually now, or how's that working?
Well, we're still providing food, but as far as the training, no. I've done a couple. I'm trying to get back into, back up. So I've done cooking classes every week, every Saturday for 8 years. So I've done over 400 cooking classes. And it really, this pandemic has been difficult for me because that was always my favorite thing to do. And I haven't had a class in so long. I've done a couple virtual ones, and I'm going to start at the beginning of the year doing weekly again, virtual. So I'll be able to do more Dr. Ornish cooking classes as well.
Oh, that's great. That would be great. Because I remember I've taken your classes. They're fantastic. Always full.
Yes. Usually get 20 to 30 people. So, yeah.
That's fantastic.
Especially my vegan cheese class. I always get about 50 to that one, and it's like overflow, and it's a little difficult. But everybody always wants to learn about vegan cheeses.
So you managed to have a restaurant that's both raw and cooked, which I think is fabulous because then people can, some people just maybe don't want to eat raw, and raw people maybe don't want to eat cooked, but by having them both, it's like great.
Right. Well, we started as more or less a raw restaurant. We had maybe 2 dishes that weren't. And over the years, that's changed. One of the benefits of eating raw food is you get the full enzyme effect of that are naturally in the food. Once you cook it, you kill the enzymes. That's one of the big benefits of raw food. But over the years, more and more people have wanted cooked food. So now we're more cooked than we are raw, but we still have about 8 different things you can get raw. There's a raw and a cooked version usually. So we do have, and we're one of the few raw places left in Los Angeles. There used to be, when we started 11 years ago, there were probably, 5, 6 fully raw restaurants. And I can't name anybody that's fully raw anymore.
I know. I remember it was really, really popular in the early 2000s.
Yeah, no, it was, and a lot of celebrities were doing it. And we see a lot of celebrities at SunCafe. I mean, if they're trying to eat healthy, we're one of the healthier vegan places. We don't use mock meats. We don't fry. We don't have a fryer in the restaurant. So we're one of the healthy-minded vegan restaurants. And so a lot of the stars, they're in front of the camera and they need to look their best. So we see, a lot of celebrities, Renee Zellweger, Mila Kunis, Miley Cyrus, Lady Gaga, many, many others.
You never were there when I was there.
You just weren't there enough.
That's because
at least 1 or 2 every week.
You know why? Because it's so hard to park in LA. That was the problem. That was the problem. Well, I almost said I had no idea that Dr. Ornish had a program in LA. Either did I. That is just like, gosh, that would almost been worth staying to work for him or in that program. That is just fantastic to be able to, because that's one of the biggest problems. If people have heart disease or are following Dr. Ornish or Dr. Esselstyn, they can't get a meal at a restaurant because, Yeah,
very difficult because most of the plant-based doctors, many of whom I know, I'm a huge fan of Dr. Michael Greger, and I know Dr. Greger. Most of them, Esselstyn, Campbell, they all recommend a low-fat vegan diet. And, you can eat junk food vegan and still not be very healthy. You could eat potato chips all day long. That's vegan. You can eat just overly processed stuff. But in my cooking classes, I try and do mostly health-minded, relatively low-fat cooking because that's what I think is healthiest. And I use fresh ingredients and organic ingredients and so on.
Well, I sure appreciate that. So I'm sure you don't have time to watch the show, but this is my 353rd show since the pandemic began. And a guest yesterday, who knows you, suggested that we have this new thing where if you know the guest the next day, you send like a little comment or, because I always say at the end of the show who the guest is. And so it turned out the guest knew you. And he asked me to ask you, and then you can guess who it is. How's the house in Vegas going?
How's the what in Vegas?
The house.
Oh, well, no house yet. I've many times thought about leaving LA at some point and moving to some place that's a little less expensive. Well,
you got to talk because I'm telling you, we'll talk after the show. There's real possibilities here, seriously, and it's really, really affordable. Do you know who the guest was yesterday that said that?
No, I don't.
His name was John Badass Vegan.
Oh. Sure, John's a great guy.
Yeah, I don't know if you know.
Such a great advocate for veganism. Because he's just the picture of health as well. It's incredible.
Well, tomorrow's guest is Chef Rachel Carr, who used to have a raw restaurant in LA. So if you
not only that, she used to be our head chef.
Well, what are the chances? So if you have something like a little funny joke or something you want to send to her tomorrow. So I know that you can't.
She's just like such a spectacular creative chef. She's amazing. I don't know if I have a joke for her, but she's an incredible chef, that's for sure.
She really is. Yeah. So there's a few questions and comments that I'll read you from the chat. And Diane wanted to know, in your vegan cheese, do you use oil?
I use, so there's several different ways I make vegan cheese. The most common way is with nuts. I don't use any added oil, but I do use like cashews or sunflower seeds to make a lot of my cheeses. I do have one cheddar cheese recipe that's 0 fat. And it uses, you won't believe this, it uses sweet potatoes and oats are the two main ingredients.
So when is the book coming out? We have to have that recipe.
Well, the book has been in process for a long time, but I'm still formatting with waiting for my graphic guy to finish it up. Hopefully spring of next year, you'll see a book from me.
Right, because we have to have that cheese recipe. That'll revolutionize it for those of us that eat a no added oil diet. Right. Would you know, one of the, I've just hosted a GI Health Summit, and for some people, nutritional yeast just doesn't agree with them. Yeah. How do we get that flavor when we can't use nooch?
Boy, that's a tough one, because I do use nutritional yeast a lot. And I love it. And it's the only source of B12 for most vegans, other than supplements. So it's nice to, get a decent amount of nutritional yeast in your diet just for that. I don't know.
Tough, I know. Well, think about it, but yeah, still.
Well, part of it is, like, one of the things I use in several of my recipes is paprika, and onion powder helps give a kind of a savory flavor to things. Onion powder, as opposed to raw onion, is much more subtle. And I'll actually mention it in something else we're going to do today. Different ways you can use onion powder that are a great supplement to things you might not have in the kitchen. You can use onion powder instead.
That's great. Mandy wants to know, what's your favorite thing to make at the cafe and eat at the cafe? Maybe it's the same.
Well, that changes almost weekly. I am not one to eat the same thing every day. So I'm always, changing it up. I also live a block from the restaurant, so I literally have almost nothing in the refrigerator here. I walk over to the restaurant. If I'm going to make something, and something not on the menu, I much prefer walking over to the restaurant because it's all washed and ready for me. And so I just go in there and I, make a stir fry or some sauce and make a bowl or something. But as far as the restaurant goes, currently I love our ramen. And it's not like an average ramen. It's got black bean noodles in it, which are gluten-free and not even a grain, which is great. Also, it's just got all sorts of vegetables in it. And I like that. I'm huge on leafy greens. As far as health goes, I try and do at least a pound of leafy greens a day. To give you an idea, that's 3 bags of Trader Joe's pre-washed spinach is my minimum daily intake of greens. I do that through smoothies, salads, and also I'll do a lot of just throw greens in whatever I'm making. So I'm doing a stir fry, I'll throw in a huge handful of kale in addition, or I'll just saute a bunch of greens very lightly. My idea of cooking greens is you cook them until they wilt. So spinach, 30 seconds is how long you cook it. Kale, 2 minutes. I always get a kick out of Southern greens because in Southern cuisine, they cook greens about 2 hours, turn it brown, add a pound of bacon fat, and just destroy all the health qualities of the greens.
They're so unappetizing when they're gray. They just don't like them.
When you just, seriously, you just wait until it wilts, which is, like I say, a minute or two, it tastes so much better. It tastes so much more vibrant and so much healthier for you. So those are some of the ways I get down to greens. The reason greens are so important, real quick, one is they're the most nutrient-dense foods on earth. Number 2, they have tons of fiber. We all know fiber for elimination, but also fiber is how your gut grows probiotics. So the more fiber you eat, the more probiotics you grow in your gut, and the healthier your whole system is. Also, they have phytonutrients, which fight off diseases like cancer. And those are just it's also got chlorophyll in it. The green tells you it's full of chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is one of the main detoxers of nature. So those are just a few of the many reasons greens are just so important, and nobody gets enough. I don't even think a pound a day is enough. So I try to do even more than that when I can.
How could I love you even more? First Ornish, and now you're spouting the things about greens. That's great.
Greens are the way.
Yeah, you seem really healthy. And do you have time? And I mean, well, right now, of course, it's different. But when I know what it's like. I worked at a restaurant for 5 years. Did you ever have time for exercise or anything like that?
Oh yeah, every morning. Well, since the pandemic, every morning I take a run, like 7 in the morning before things get crazy at the restaurant. And then I eat super healthy. I actually, this was funny. I hadn't been to a doctor for a checkup in a while, 22 years. So I thought, well, I should probably go. And so this was about 5 years ago. And I go to the doctor, and he, not exaggerating, he shook his head through the whole exam. He would listen to my heart, and he'd shake his head. And he'd take my blood pressure, and he'd shake his head. And I was like, what the heck is going on? And at the end, he shrugs and he goes, I don't know what to tell you, but you're more than 20 years younger than your physical age, which is always nice to hear. And I did what any self-respecting vegan would do in that situation. I asked the doctor to send me an email, if he could, saying that I was 20 years younger than my physical age. So I have proof from a doctor that I am 20 years younger than my physical age.
That's fantastic. I don't know your physical age, but I'm told
I'm 64.
Wow, you're 4 years older than me. Well, you look amazing. That's so cool. And we're both 43 years.
Isn't that wild?
I did not know that. I love getting to know you. I know that you want to do a cooking demo, so thank you for doing that, because people are commenting on how beautiful the restaurant menu looks, because obviously not everybody lives in LA that's watching this show. Sure. And so Ron's going to make sugar plums, which I don't know what those are, but I know that visions of them are supposed to be dancing in our head this week because it's almost Christmas. And he's going to be making it so hard to pronounce these French words, but a tempeh bean bourguignon. And the recipes are in the show notes already. If you're watching on YouTube, they're there. If you're watching on Facebook, unfortunately, you got to go over to YouTube to see them, because that's just the way the technology works.
So, the bean bourguignon is kind of a festive dish. It's I love the flavor of bourguignon. It's hard to find vegan one. I was in Paris about 8 years ago and found a little cafe that did all the traditional French cuisine, but vegan. And so I had bourguignon there. I had mushroom pate and many other things. So anyway, I've developed my own bourguignon, which is basically like a gravy wine sauce with beans and tempeh. So we're going to get started we're going to use an onion. You can't cook French cuisine without onion, I don't think. I think it's illegal probably in France. And I'm going to show you a couple things about using a knife. I like a shorter knife, like this is a Sentoku knife, which is about 6-inch blade. A chef's knife is usually about a 9-inch blade, and I find they get in the way. They're so long, and you don't really use the whole thing anyway. So that's the blade I like. You want a nice wide blade, and you're going to hold it at the top with your 2 fingers and tuck the others under. And then this is the hand that most often gets cut when you're chopping. And one of the reasons is almost every fruit and vegetable is round, like this onion. So the first cut, you want to get to a flat surface. So the way I do that is I cut right through the middle of the stem of the onion. And now we have 2 flat surfaces, and we're not going to need the whole onion. And so now it's not going to move on you. So it's stationary. So that's one aspect. And then I'm just going to cut off the ends on both sides.
Ron, it's so funny. You said you can't cook French cuisine without onion. I think you can't cook anything without onion.
I would not make a good, what is it called? Monk, Buddhist monk, because they can't eat garlic and onion.
I know.
My 2 favorite things in the kitchen.
This GI Health Summit for people that have to do low FODMAP, they use this spice called hing. But I really believe that everything starts with an onion.
Yeah, I do too. I had a chef once, and he was making soup, and he had the big pot, and he had like 20 onions like cooking at the bottom. And I say, "Are we making onion soup today?" He said, "No, that's just the base." And I thought it was like, wow, that's a lot of onion, but it made it so flavorful. And ever since, I never pulled back on the onion. So now you've got a half of an onion here, and I'm going to show you how to chop an onion super easy, because most people start, slicing and then chopping around. This is the easiest way. So you do a cut almost to the other edge. So you put in the cuts, then you put in one down the middle, or two if you want. And now this is going to hold together as you're chopping. So you get a perfectly even little chop, and that's the best way to chop an onion, because I see people struggle with that. So there is our, I think it calls for a half a cup. Yeah, half a cup of onion. Let me turn on my. Okay, so we're going to start by cooking the onion, the tempeh, which if you're not familiar with tempeh, this is tempeh. It's a tofu product, but it's been fermented, and it has much more texture than tofu. It's way more interesting than texture in taste and texture than tofu is. The flavor is a little more nutty than tofu, and it's great because it has a chewiness to it. So we're just going to cut it into little cubes.
Do you make your own plant milk at the restaurant, Ron?
That what?
Do you make your own plant milks?
We do. For our shakes, we make cashew milk to order with each one. So yes.
Which machine do you use?
Just use a Vitamix for that.
Have you heard of that? Mm-hmm.
Now to keep this low oil, whoops, I just realized I don't have what I need here. Let me grab it from the kitchen. So rather than adding oil, I'm just going to use a little olive oil spray in the pan, just so it doesn't stick. I'm also using cast iron, which nothing really sticks to cast iron, which is one of the reasons I like it. You don't have to have a Teflon surface, which there's some question marks about how safe Teflon is. So we're going to add the tempeh and our onion and the garlic as soon as I can get to it. We're just going to brown those up a little bit. We've got quite a bit of garlic here. We'll let those go for a bit while we prep our other ingredients. So we've got mushrooms, celery, and carrots. And same with the carrot. I'm going to cut down the middle. So the first slice, you are going to have to deal with it being round, but now I have two flat surfaces, and then I'm just going to chop it from there. And I'm going to chop it pretty thin because carrot takes a while to cook and if it's thicker.
What are you doing for Christmas?
Chop up the celery.
Is the restaurant closed for Christmas?
We're closed the 24th, 25th, and the 1st. Yeah, it's difficult to find people to work, and with the pandemic especially, I have no idea, who's going to be around these days. All right. Chop up some mushrooms. And the mushrooms, I just slice maybe, semi-thick because they cook down so much. And then there's lots of great herbs in this dish. You've got thyme and sage and salt, pepper, and then the tomato paste helps give it kind of a gravy texture. Okay, do one more mushroom. Okay. Move this around a little bit. You want to leave it a little bit on one side, so you do get some browning on that. I don't know if you can see that there, but it's got a little browning to it. And if you stir too often, you're not going to get it brown on one side, and that helps bring out the flavors of the onion and the tempeh. Let that go maybe another minute, and then we'll add our other vegetables and our seasoning. Now, ultimately, we're going to add in some red wine. It can really be any red wine. You just want a nice, rich red wine to help with the gravy. And we've got our white beans. You can use either cannellini or Great Northern. Either work great. I feel like Great Northern are a little creamier. Cannellini are a little drier, but either will work great. So we'll go ahead and add this. Now to help it along, I'll let it cook a little bit, but to help it along, one of the things I like in the kitchen is either a water spray bottle to just give a little moisture to steam something, or you can just add a couple of teaspoons of water in, and it'll help hurry up the cooking of the vegetables. I do like to get just a little bit of browning on at least one side of my vegetables before I add water, so I'm going to let it go a couple minutes there, and then we'll add something to get it going. Now, it calls for vegetable stock, and this is where most people don't have vegetable stock in their kitchen, and it's a pain in the butt to make. So my quick fix for that, anywhere where you see vegetable stock added in a recipe, you add 1 teaspoon of onion powder to 1 cup of vegetable stock. You're just going to add it to water. So 1 cup of water with 1 teaspoon of onion powder is more or less what vegetable stock is. Traditional vegetable stock is onion, celery, carrots, but the onion is really the main flavoring. So that 1 teaspoon of onion powder is enough to, give the water a stock flavor.
That's such a great hack.
Yeah, because like so often people don't have vegetable stock in their cupboard, or certainly many people don't want to make it.
I just don't like buying the boxes. I really don't. Yeah, that's exactly why have you ever heard of the Nutramilk machine? Because I can make broth in it. Have you ever heard of that?
Okay.
You can make nut butters and you can make plant milks, but that is a great hack. And there's a couple of questions. JL says, if you don't have wine, could you use something else like balsamic vinegar?
You could probably use balsamic reduction if you have it, or a little balsamic vinegar just to give it a little bit of flavor, sure. But you would use much less. You wouldn't use a half a cup of balsamic vinegar. Maybe use like a tablespoon of balsamic vinegar to replace the wine.
And Annette says, how does Chef Ron season his cast iron pan? Or does Chef Ron season his pan?
So I wash it with soap and water. Don't put it in a dishwasher. And then once it's dry, I just use like literally 2 drops of olive oil and just spread it around to season it after every use. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to add a little bit of water to steam these vegetables up a bit. Okay, I don't know. I'm going to turn this up so you can see it. That's where we are now. We got a nice base going here. And now we're going to add in everything except the flour, the wine, and the beans. Now, the wine you don't want to have cooked too long generally. So I'm going to hold off on that. But we're going to add all our seasonings here. So we've got our tomato paste, which is one of my favorite ingredients in a kitchen. I love tomato paste. It can really add a lot of flavor quickly to something. And then we've got our thyme. thyme, sage, salt. We've got 1 teaspoon of salt. I always use sea salt and our pepper. Okay, so there's our seasoning. What else am I forgetting? Oh, and then our vegetable stock. So I'm gonna add a little more water. And we're gonna add our onion powder. Normally I would just mix it in the, like in a bowl, but it, this is gonna get stirred around quite a bit, so it should be fine. And we wanna get the tomato sauce like in that moisture and dilute it a little bit so we can get it to coat the whole pan. Just let that cook down just a minute, and then we'll add, needs a little more water, a little dried out here, so. And then when we add the red wine, and then we're going to add the, well, actually we're going to add the flour just to make this more into a sauce, and then we'll add the wine to it. And I'm using a gluten-free flour. I'm just using a garbanzo bean flour. So this is, in French cooking, you'll see a lot of recipes that have a roux, which is basically using flour to thicken up juices and whatnot, and it creates this kind of dry roux, and then they add something like wine to make it less thick again. Okay, so I'm adding a Pinot Noir. It calls for half a cup, if I remember. And so it's a little bit saucy at the moment, a little bit thin, but it'll simmer now for a couple of minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and it'll thicken up as it does. Oh, it's got a beautiful aroma. Can you smell that?
I wish we could smell it and taste it.
Well, you can at your own leisure soon. So I'm going to turn down that and let it simmer for a little bit, and we can start getting ready on the sugar plums. So sugar plums, turn this over. So sugar plums start with plums, which are dried, which are prunes. Prunes are plums that are dried. And I've also got raisins, and I've got date paste. If you're not familiar with date paste, this company makes it Ziyad, Z-I-Y-A-D. And it's just ground dates with the pits gone. And what's nice about it is it's a nice soft texture. You can use regular dates, but if you've had them any length of time, they're going to dry out a little bit. So if you're going to use regular dates, number one, make sure you get the pit out. Number two, soak it in warm water for 20, 30 minutes and get it nice and soft, because it needs to be soft to absorb these different dried fruits. So we've got these 3 dried fruits. I'll cut this open so you can see what the date paste looks like. So it's just ground dates. And we're going to put the plums in, the prunes. And so we're going to start by not adding the other things before we chop up the prunes a little bit. If you put it all in at the same time, it's going to be hard for the blade to chop down the prunes to a smaller Small thighs. Okay, so they're chopped up here. Let's see if I can show them to you. So you can see they're chopped. Now, the catch with using date paste is you don't want to put it all in one chunk, or else you'll just get this one big piece just going around. So you're going to add it through the opening. You're going to add like a couple of teaspoons, a tablespoon at a time, so that it can start to absorb into it. And there's actually 2 ways to make this, so I'm going to mention that. You can put all the seasoning, the cinnamon, the nutmeg, and the cloves all in and mix it all together with the fruits. You can use the coconut on the outside if you want, or no coconut if you want. Or the way I'm going to do it today is I'm going to make all the fruit together, and then we're going to roll it in the coconut with the spices. So the spices are all going to be on the outside. So I'm going to start adding fruit. And you get like this paste of these fruits. Now we're going to take our little bit of shredded coconut, add our spices, which is our cinnamon, our clove, little bit of clove. Clove goes a long way. I love clove, but it's very strong. And then nutmeg. And we're just going to stir it around a little bit. And then I'm going to put it on my board. And then we're going to take, and also probably have on gloves. And you just roll it into a ball. And you roll it in the coconut and the seasoning. You've got your sugar plums. Try and make them about 3/4 of an inch. You don't want them too big. A couple more. You can buy, the little disposable gloves pretty much everywhere now, and that helps it not stick to your hands quite so much. I'm not always the best at making them round, but anyway, you get the idea. They taste just as good whether they're round or a little oblong. And we'll do one more.
What are you going to make for Christmas since you're closed? Are you just going to walk to the restaurant and grab something?
Yeah, pretty much I make everything. I think I'm meeting with my director on the Christmas Eve for my film. I'll probably make him something, and we'll have a little something. Let me also serve up the Bourguignon. You can put this over rice or noodles if you like, or just, eat it the way it is. Hold on. And hands are a bit messy from sugar plums dancing on my fingers. Okay. So here is your Bourguignon. I wish you could smell this. With the wine and the herbs, it really has a beautiful fragrance.
JL wants to know, will the alcohol cook off?
Oh yeah, it cooks off very quickly. Within a couple of minutes, the alcohol is gone. I'm also a teetotaler. I haven't had anything to drink in since I was 21 either. A quick thing about decorating a plate. I always like to spend even just a couple of seconds decorating a plate. Some of the ways you can do that is you can take any kind of herb. I'm going to use lemon pepper here real quick. And you just do what's called dusting. You just kind of move your fingers back and forth. And it just adds a little something to the plate. You can also, in this case, add like some parsley or whatever. I'll show you a little close up here. There is your Bourguignon with your wine sauce. Super tasty, kind of festive, not everybody has it. So it's a little something different for you. And then your sugar plums are a quick, easy little fun dessert. And there's a couple of good ones for you. And any other questions?
That looks amazing. Oh my God, you're going to have a great lunch today. Do you guys have any questions for Chef Ron? Doesn't that look great, you guys? Diane said, did you put the beans in it?
Oh, no, of course I didn't. Why would I do that? Anyway.
But you could make, I mean, I bet it would be good without it as well.
Oh yeah. I mean, traditionally it's beef Bourguignon. So it's just beef with vegetables. So there generally isn't beans in it, but the beans add a nice texture for the vegan crowd. And
well, it just shows that she's paying attention.
That's good. I like that. So there's the bean version. But yes, good point. I'm bad at double checking.
Yeah. Ruth says Chef Ron looks healthy and his food looks healthy.
Thank you. Thank you. And, you know, this is a low-fat dish, and this is a no-fat dessert. Well, I shouldn't say no-fat dessert. It's got the coconut. But if you do it without the coconut, then it's a fat-free dessert. So that's another way to keep the fat intake down, because so many desserts are fatty. We have amazing desserts at SunCafe. We have mud pie and almond butter cheesecake and strawberry cheesecake and key lime pie, but they are all high in fat. I've tried to figure out some, you know, mainstream. We like to be a mainstream restaurant, so we attract meat eaters. But you know, sometimes that means you can't be quite as healthy as I like to be with your desserts and such. You got to make it decadent, and they're certainly way better than you know, milk and cream and egg desserts. But as far as health-wise, but they are high in fat. Absolutely.
But that's great, though, that you offer both. Michelle said, can you use grape juice instead of wine?
You could. I would, like before, I would add a little bit of balsamic vinegar. You know, so you could maybe use like a quarter cup of grape juice with a tablespoon of the balsamic vinegar, because wine isn't quite as sweet as grape juice would be. So you need to counter that a little bit with the vinegar, I think, would make it closer to wine.
Do you have a favorite balsamic? Because you're going to get 2 free bottles for being on the show from my favorite company. You get to choose, but I'm just wondering if you have any that you like right now.
No, I mean, I just always get organic, typically. You know, I like Newman brand a lot. We get olive oil that's Newman brand and so on as a finishing olive oil, because it's really high quality. But no, I'm not overly fussy about my balsamic vinegar.
Right. Well, these will be the reduced ones, and I'm sorry they're not organic. They come from Modena though, so hopefully you'll try them.
Well,
and
often
you'll like
what
them.
I find is even brands that say they're not, certified are typically, not all, but a lot of them are organic practice. They just haven't gone to the trouble of getting the certification. So to me, that's fine. As long as they, most, like for instance, most vineyards do not spray chemicals on their grapes. So even though it's not officially organic, it's organic practice usually.
And what I found out from Dr. Ron Weiss, who's a doctor and a farmer, that even organic now is using chemicals and pesticides. Right. So it's not that much better necessarily.
Yeah, it's a fuzzy line sometimes, yes.
A question, if we could see a close-up of the sugar plums.
Oh, yes. Around there. Like I said, you should spend a little more time and make them a little more even, but there are your sugar plums. And believe it or not, these taste amazing. It's all about the herbs and the spices. The cloves and the nutmeg and the cinnamon is what makes those so good. And then you've got the flavors of the dried fruits as well. So yeah, they were.
Kathleen says she loves the picture behind you. Is it a painting or is it fabric?
It is a painting. I purchased this. I'm also an artist. I should probably have one of my own to promote my own art. But yeah, I just loved this. I just thought it was fun, and I picked it up at an art show one time.
Nice. And Pam says, "How do you make your kale shake?" It's probably proprietary, I'm guessing. Yeah.
Our famous kale shake. I call it, like I said, our gateway drug. So our kale shake, I'll tell you the ingredients. It's got banana, a lot of kale, like a big handful of kale, cashews, either dates or agave, depending on how you want it. And it's got fresh vanilla as one of our secrets. So we don't use extract. We use fresh vanilla beans ground up. It's super expensive. It's like $300 a pound. Each shake has $1 worth of vanilla in it. Just the vanilla is $1 in our shakes, our cost. And those are the ingredients. It's also got a dash of almond in it. And it tastes like pistachio soft serve ice cream, a lot of people tell us. And a quick tip on any kind of smoothie or shake you want to make, and this is how we make our shakes so thick, is you do not add ice the first round of blending. So we blend like a little bit of water with all those ingredients and get kind of a slurry, and then you add the ice. Because if you add the ice at the same time, what will happen is the blender blade will keep hitting the ice before it blends the rest. And so you will essentially reduce the ice down to water, and you'll get a not a very thick shake. So you get everything ground up nice and smooth, and then you add the ice, and then you get a nice thick shake or a smoothie that way. That's one of our secrets.
Wow, you're just full of tips. First the broth and then the perfect smoothie. One thing that's very popular where I live in the desert are date shakes. And I agree with you that vanilla extracts are just not good. And I was a pastry chef for 5 years, and people just don't want to spend the money, but then they want it to taste like mine, and it won't. You've got to get I do vanilla powder, which is just ground vanilla beans.
Oh, right. Yeah, and also, as you know, vanilla in the last 5-10 years has just gone up 500% maybe. I mean, it's crazy expensive now. Yeah, it's like we used to get gallon-sized bottles of vanilla extract organic, and it went from $50 to $250, and we stopped buying it, and we started getting the beans. They're not necessarily cheaper, but we just also found that the quality, the ground beans is just phenomenal over an extract.
Yeah, it is. It's incomparable.
It's a lot of money, but it's worth it.
Yeah, I would rather leave out vanilla than put in extract.
Yeah.
Cheryl says, any classes in 2021?
Yes, I will be posting in the next 2 days all my classes that are going to be coming up in January. So I'll have a whole list of Sunday morning classes that are going to start, I believe, at 10 a.m. West Coast time. And I've probably got 70 different classes I've done on different cuisines. So I do a French class and a Mexican class and Italian. Well, I've got like 4 Italian classes, and I've got Middle Eastern and Indian. And then I'll do like themed classes, like, meal bowls, and I'll do like a Thai bowl and a curry bowl and so on. And then I'll do an ingredient one sometimes, like I have a pumpkin class where I do a pumpkin shake and a pumpkin stew and so on. So I do different themes with my classes, always a minimum of 3 recipes, often 4. And it's usually about an hour and a half class.
And will they be virtual at the beginning of the year?
These will all be virtual in January. Yes.
That's great.
Yeah.
So I can make 10 o'clock because my show doesn't start. I'll have to leave at 11, but I can make the first hour. That's great. So let me know the information. We'll post it in the show notes.
Yeah. Also, you can go to the SunCafe website, suncafe.com, and you can see a tab for classes there, and I'll be adding those, like I said, over the next couple of days for the new year.
Well, what's nice is more people can take it now if it's virtual.
Yeah.
They won't get to taste it, but at least you'll get a lot more.
Right. And I'm charging half as much as I do for my in-person classes. So, it's, because you don't get the tasting, it'll be less.
Right. Well, that's great. I can't wait because I love your classes. Well, thank you, Ron. This has been so much fun.
Yes, AJ, always great to talk with you. And you've always been an inspiration with your story and your cuisine. I've had so many people say they've taken your classes over time, and always rave reviews.
That is so kind. Well, thank you. And if you think of anything funny for me to say to Chef Carr tomorrow, let me, you have 23 hours because this will be like a new feature. Say something to tomorrow's guest, who is Chef Rachel Carr, who's going to be making a raw pizza so that sounds really wonderful. Yeah. So thanks all you guys for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live. And as I mentioned, Chef Rachel Carr is going to be making a raw pizza. So you definitely don't want to miss that. And thanks again, Chef Ron, and take care.
Thanks so much, AJ.
Bye-bye.
Take care.